Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. Hey, Big Mako? Sorry, I think I got that right one time and now I second guess myself all the time. My name is Peter Klein. My light is way too bright. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Coming up, we are looking at the Calgary Flames. They keep winning. How? Plus, we'll be looking at NFL power rankings heading into week number 7 and a little bit of boxing talk to wrap things up on the show today as we have new pound-for-pound rankings coming out of the Beterbiev Bivol fight from the weekend. So, there is a lot to cover on the show. As always, if you want to get involved in this conversation or any conversation, let me know in the chat. Just start chatting away. And if it's not what necessarily the segment's about, just for my own editing purposes, because I put all this stuff up on YouTube after, I will be just answering it at the end of the segment. That's kind of how we're going to do this. But really looking forward to doing this today. Let's get into it and start talking about the Calgary Flames. Mako from the, Mackenzie from the Game Over stream chat. Well, thank you, for hanging out today, and, welcome to Couch Potato Diary. So, the Calgary Flames, with a victory last night over the Chicago Blackhawks, 3-1 ends up being the final score. And, I have thought about doing a, sorry, I cannot get my lighting right today. I have thought about doing a, well, how seriously can we take this, segment, and stuff like that. And I still think the answer is not, and so there, I've done the segment now. But I do think that obviously there's a lot of positive signs. When you are winning 4 games in a row, things are going to be going well. But I do think this season in general, a lot of the messaging, at least from here, is going to be process over results. And the results are there, but the process is there as well. And that is what gives me so much optimism going forward with this team, is you look at how they are playing, and this is how they're going to have to play to be successful. And so, just firstly, awesome that they're getting rewarded for that. That is, I think, a real boost when you have a way that you have to play to be successful, and you play that way, and it works. That is really great when you're trying to get young players on board with what you're doing, and veteran players, I guess, as well. When you're trying to get everyone involved and get them invested in the way you are kind of handling your business. So, for the Flames, how are they going to be successful? They are not going to out-talent many, if any, teams. What they are going to do is have to win a lot of those puck battles, win a lot of those races, and score a few ugly goals. And they have been doing that. You look at the goal that Mantha scored against Edmonton the other night, where he beat Hyman in front and just bullied him and scored the goal to get the victory in that one. The goal that Huberdeau gets, he's just going to the net and the puck bounces off of him and goes in. You would love for your team to be the one that is able to do all the dipsy doodle and walk in and there's a shot from 30 feet and oh, what a goal, or between the legs dangle, all that. That's not going to be this group. At least for now, it's not going to be this group. So it's good that they are going out there and putting in the process that they are going to need, the systems that they are going to need to be successful, and seeing those things work. One thing that I don't think can be overlooked in how this is all going is I do think the goaltending has bailed them out at times. And now, not to the point where it's like the Find-A-Way Flames, where it was Ramo and Hiller and all those guys making 45 saves on a nightly basis, and this team was finding ways to somehow win 2-1 games coming off of that. But there have been a few times where there have been a few defensive breakdowns, and Wolf last night was really sharp. Vladar in other nights has been really sharp. I still think that this team defensively has some work to do. But overall, they have done a tremendous job of shutting down the opposition and kind of keeping a whole lot of stuff to the outside. A few breakdowns, a few more than you would like, but they are doing a great job with that. And then lastly, you are getting contributions from the guy that you really want to get contributions from. And you are getting, like, Huberdeau is it, Mako in the chat mentioning Coronado showed a bit of skill, but he still had to kind of push in his goal. And yeah, no, there's that too. Like, they aren't just a bunch of just knuckle drag or just like what my beard would make you believe I would be. That they aren't necessarily that. That there is some skill there. I guess I shouldn't understate it too much. But yeah, Coronado showing that, and he has been one that has been fantastic. And Ad and me talked about this on Game Over Calgary last night. I should share that in the chat. Although, I mean, there's only a couple in here right now, and obviously one of them was in the chat. So maybe we don't need to share that one right now. But the thought of, well, you can't play Coronado on the fourth line is one that I bought into, and honestly am still kind of there. I don't think long term this is where he kind of fits in on this team, but it's also better than him not playing at all. And so that is why I thought it was a little curious when they called him up with the Rooney injury, and then you have Hanzik go play on the top line. It's like, well, that's kind of where Coronado, it's kind of the only spot Coronado fits. So why are you not doing that? But I have really liked what that fourth line has brought. And I know a lot of people were talking last night about, well, Mangiapane started on the fourth line. It's like, well, I kind of think Mangiapane is... he's closer to a fourth liner than a first liner. I will say that, right? Like he got the 35 goals, and we all love him for it very, very much. And we all got to we love the Sopranos memes and all that when he scores goals. It's so much fun. But he's not that guy. He is much closer to energy fourth line guy than he is a high level sniper type. And your hope for Coronado is that he turns into high level sniper guy. Because if he is not that, I just don't know how sustainable a run in the NHL is for him. But for right now, for him to be going out there and buying in that way, I think shows a real level of maturity for him that is very encouraging to see. And I also think that it is a testament to the play of Kirkland and Lomberg as well, and what they have been able to do. That line has been a whole lot of fun. Lomberg has been the exact type of energy this Flames team needed. Like, he has played the role of Ryan Lomberg perfectly so far for this Flame squad, and that has been really great to see. And to have now, like I said, Coronado getting in there, contributing offensively, you now have scoring on all four lines, and that's not something you really thought you would have with this Flames group. And another reason you have that is because the Huberdeau line is also going, and Anthony Mantha has been beastin' with Huberdeau, and those two, along with Pospisil, have fit like a glove, and it is the exact thing that you wanted to see from Anthony Mantha, from Jonathan Huberdeau, and from Martin Pospisil. And I have said before, this team is not going to be able to move Jonathan Huberdeau. Like, he is a part of the future. So you may as well make the most of it. And right now, Mantha's making the most of it, which does lead to interesting conversations down the road. But for now, he's making the most of it, and he's doing a phenomenal job with that. Overall, it's been very positive for the Flames. Now they get a few days to kind of rest. I do like these early season breaks that teams tend to get, where you get into it. They had a back-to-back over the weekend, then you play again on a Tuesday, and now there's this pause here. And yeah, you would like to just like stay, especially when they're winning, you would like to stay in the momentum of the season and just keep it rolling. But I do think it's a pretty good, like, okay, we've played 4 games. Let's just, everyone, just a deep cleansing breath, and just see, all right, now that that's out of the way, what's working, what's not working. Let's actually see what's going on here. And I think this is a good time to assess, like, all right, what has actually, like, the wins have been great. What's actually been working, what's actually not working, and let's see where all the chips kind of fall after this. But another good win for the Flames, and now an interesting test against the Seattle Kraken coming up on Saturday. For more Flames talk, head over to Game Over Calgary on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, that is it for the Hockey Talk today. Let's get into some NFL power rankings. NFL Power Rankings heading into week number 7. These ones, a couple of big movers, but a lot kind of stays the same. As this NFL week almost felt like the first week where things started to make sense a little bit, right? Like, it was just, okay, there wasn't a wild and crazy, oh wow, how did this happen? What an upset, what a... Like, For the first 6 weeks of the season, the whole year has kind of felt like the red zone witching hour thing. But now it's kind of settled in a little bit more. So at 32, it's Carolina. We continue to see that while it was fun when they played Cincinnati and the Raiders and everything was moving well, now that they are facing real football teams, there's resistance and they are not handling it super well. So there's that. At 31, it's New England. Yes, Drake May came in and played quarterback. No, it didn't look good for a half. Yes, it looked better in the second half. No, it does not make them a good football team. At 30, it's the Cleveland Browns. They move on from Amari Cooper, and the race to the bottom is on. And for these three teams, we'll talk about this in a sec. At 29, it's the Vegas Raiders. They move on from Devontae Adams, and the race for the bottom is on. At 28, it is the Miami Dolphins. They did not play this week, and so they moved up a spot because things got substantially worse for the Raiders. And so our bottom five, Miami, Vegas, Cleveland, New England, and Carolina. Not necessarily how the standings sit right now, but let's just say, for argument's sake, that this is the draft order when we get to April. That's a lot of interesting decisions to be made. For Carolina, is it quarterback again? Because that feels like a waste. That feels like a gigantic... Now, there's the sunk cost and all of that, but oh boy, I think that if you're Carolina right now and you do get that first overall pick, I think you have to try to take advantage and hope that there is another, quite frankly, Carolina out there who is desperate to move up and try to get a Ewers or a center, or whoever is going to be the number one quarterback. Hope that they are desperate enough, because this team, when they went out and made that move for Bryce Young, they were not a quarterback away. And now here we are a couple of years later, and you are still not a quarterback away. And so I think if the Panthers went out and drafted a kid again, first overall, they would just be making the exact same mistake that they did, and clearly not doing anything to grow from that. New England would obviously not be taking a quarterback. That would be best O-lineman or wide receiver available. The Cleveland one's interesting because a lot of people are saying that the only way you get rid of Deshaun Watson is to attach your first round pick to it. If the first round pick is top 3, do they? Or do they just kind of like, hey, Deshaun, we're going to pay you to not be here, and we're going to draft this kid, and they're going to be the starter. You will collect your paycheck and just sit at home and stay so far away from this kid. It's not even funny. I wonder what they would do there. The Raiders, I think, would just draft a quarterback and move on, even though, again, I don't think that foundation is set. And the Miami one is really interesting because of the Tua situation. And Walt Grizzly in the chat, why do you think the Dolphins are worse than the Jags or the Titans right now? Interesting question. The Titans did beat Miami a couple of weeks ago, and Jacksonville, yes, and I honestly probably didn't move Jacksonville down far enough in my rankings, so a very good point. It's how bad it has looked, and a big part of that is Tua not being in the lineup, but let's remember, it didn't look good for Tua in week 1. They do get the win against Jacksonville, and so yes, my argument of, well, Tennessee beat them goes out the window because Jacksonville won, but don't only pay attention to the stuff I want you to. But no, and then week 2, they are getting just curb stomped by Buffalo, and then the Tua injury happens, and now, like, this offense can do nothing. Like, they look like the worst offense in football, and there are still a lot of talented pieces on this team, but quite frankly, I think that teams like the Raiders in New England have more of a beef with being below Miami than Miami has of being below a Tennessee or a Jacksonville, just based off of how it looks. Now, if we were to project, like, there's still a world Miami makes the playoffs. Tua comes back, and we have the same conversation we've had for a bit where, oh, well, he's one big hit away, and then I counter with, well, yeah, so is fucking everybody. And then we see what happens on that Thursday night game. It's like, well, maybe he's just a medium hit away. And there is all of that conversation, but for right now, it has just looked so bad. And this defense has not recovered in the way that I think a few people assumed it would. And now part of that is they're on the field all the time because, again, the offense can do nothing. But I just think this offense is not moving the football at all, and it has made for a really bad product. At 27, it's the Tennessee Titans. I still think this is a decent roster, just a quarterback who continues to make mistake after mistake. And this last week was, I think, the kind of the nail in all of it. That this just, I don't think it's going to work. And I don't like writing a kid off in his first full year of starting, but we have talked time and time again, the Indianapolis Colts do not alter their defense at all. And so for Will Levis to be thrown off by that is, I think, very concerning going forward for this team. At 26, it's the Rams. Maybe they get a little bit healthier and move on up, but it has been a bit of a slog so far this year. At 25, the Denver Broncos, they made a bit of a comeback against the LA Chargers, but the first 3 quarters of that game did not look very good for them. At 24, it's Jacksonville. Again, probably should be a little bit lower on this list. I think part of it is just I have them a little high to begin with, and so they are moving down incrementally a little bit. But yeah, if I just was starting brand new over, maybe I shouldn't have them this high, but it is also tough to, like, I guess Denver does have 3 wins, but I have not been impressed by Denver at all, and I still think I would take Jacksonville's roster right now and just kind of go with them. So that's where I'm at. At 23, it's the Giants. The defense is legitimately better than I thought it was going to be, and now the offense is not. But with Neighbors there's at least something. I think they found something in Tracy. I'll be interested to see what they do with him when Singletary is back, but I think this defense is actually legitimately pretty good. At 22, it's the Bears. The offense is starting to figure it out a little bit more, and this defense is very, very good. And so they're starting to put together a pretty good football team. At 21, it's the Indianapolis Colts. They have this weird thing where even when they win, none of it looks impressive. It all looks like a grind. It all looks really just like, well, I guess we found a way to win. Like, it never feels like they fully win a game. It's just that their opponents kind of run out of time. And that's not a great way to be building things. But I have them close to the middle. At 20, it's a big fall for the Dallas Cowboys. We have enough evidence now that I think we can clearly say on this podcast on Wednesday, October 16th at 10:29 a.m. Mountain Time, the Dallas Cowboys are a bad football team. This is just a horrendous group that cannot defend, nor can they move the football. Also, the coach is dumb. Also, the owner is kind of insane. There's just there are no redeeming qualities of this football team. They have CeeDee Lamb. That's it. Dak Prescott seems like he kind of be a good, fun dude to hang out with, but I don't think I'd want to be paying him a lot of money to be the quarterback of my football team. It's just that there's not a whole lot going on in Dallas right now. At 19, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. It's getting a little bit better, but again, the offense, it's weird. Like, I can't say, well, the offense can't really do anything, but also the Giants' defense is legitimate. Trust that. But I do think that the offense is kind of rounding out a little bit, and I think more Chase Brown would certainly answer a lot of things that this team needs. And defensively, it looked good against the Giants, but again, it's the Giants, so I don't think we can take that all that seriously. So I think that this is a Cincinnati team that is good, not great, and will probably continue to rise up a little bit. At 18, it's Arizona. They are another one that dropped quite a bit. I believe I had them around top 10 last week. I just can't. The offense is now too inconsistent, and the defense is now too bad. It's not clicking and it's not progressing. We saw this at the early part of the season, like, okay, this is meshing, it's going well. It hasn't taken that next step yet. And that has been, I think, a real concern for the Arizona Cardinals, is how inconsistent it seems right now. Toxic in the chat. The Cowboys being bad is good for the NFL. Oh boy, is it. I do, like, it is a little bit more fun when the Cowboys are good. They are one of those teams where even if they aren't good, we're still going to have to deal with them a lot, you know? And so because they're going to be on prime time 5 or 6 times a year, and we're always going to get them on the Thanksgiving Day game, and we're always going to be talking about them, like, I mean, and look, I'm guilty of it too. Guess who's going to be the thumbnail this week for this? It's going to be Dak Prescott and Cowboys plummet in power rankings, you know? Because people pay attention to them. And because we get them, like, just kind of plungered down our throats, I would kind of just rather them be good. If I'm going to have to watch them anyway, I would rather they be good. So not great to the point where it's absurd, but give me a good football team. But to your point, Toxic, every now and then when they just slip in a nice little oh wow, they're 6-11 type of a season, that makes it fun. And then it also makes draft time fun because you have this marquee franchise and now everyone's focusing on draft stuff. So, yes, the Cowboys being bad is very good for NFL fans and very much enjoyable. At 17, it is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They put up a whole lot of points against the New Orleans Saints and also gave up a whole bunch of points to Spencer Rattler. Although some of that was the pick sixes and fumbles and all that stuff. But this is where they should be. I have been caught in thinking too highly of Tampa Bay, and also I have at times been caught thinking too lowly of Tampa Bay. But we are now, I think, course corrected and figured out what this team actually is. At 16, it is the Los Angeles Chargers. Again, offense mid, defense is quite good, but not to the point that it carries them up to being anything beyond a middle tier team. At 15, it is New Orleans, probably a little bit too high, but still up there a little bit based off of how well things went at the beginning part of the season. And again, I have incredible respect for what they can do on the defensive side of the football. Really interested in the Thursday night game. Against the Denver Broncos. At 14, it's Seattle. Again, maybe a little bit too high, but again, this is one of those things where, okay, well, I think Seattle's too high. Well, can I confidently put New Orleans ahead of them? No. Chargers? No. Bucks? No. Cards? No. Bengals? No. Cowboys? LOL. All of these teams, 14, when you watch Seattle play, it's well, that is not the 14th best team in the NFL. And then you watch the 18 behind them, or 17 behind them, it's well, I mean, maybe. There's a lot of mediocre, as we've discussed, and Seattle, I think, is a step above that. They need to get healthy on defense because it's starting to become really very much a problem for Seattle. At 13, it is Pittsburgh. Some talk that Russell Wilson could get the start this week at quarterback. That is a good way to fall down in the power rankings, but that defense continues to be a problem. At 12, it's the New York Jets. They lose but move up because they end up getting Devontae Adams, and we broke the trade down yesterday. Maybe not necessarily the biggest need that this team has right now, but it is certainly a team that I think could be, or it's certainly a move that I think could help this team out a little bit further on. And it definitely puts them ahead of Pittsburgh, Seattle, New Orleans, LA for now, even though they sit at 2 and 4. Coming in at, where are we? Number 11. It is the Philadelphia Eagles. They are not impressive at all. And I wanted to believe, I wanted to buy in. And we said going into last week, this was the week where it needed to be dominant. And so many times when we have that, it just doesn't get there. And this week, it just didn't get there. And so I am done taking Philadelphia seriously as any kind of a threat, which is not great when we have a ticket that says Philadelphia Eagles, number 1 seed in the NFC. Doesn't feel good. I mean, got the win, so that's great, but it hasn't looked like it at all. At 10, it is San Francisco getting back on track with a Thursday night win over Seattle. They are getting healthier. They are getting better, even though I guess they're not getting all that much healthier with Mason getting hurt, but we'll see what his status is this week. At 9, it's Atlanta. It's becoming very apparent that what we saw week 1 for Atlanta against Pittsburgh was just working out some kinks, given that they didn't use a whole lot in the preseason, and we're starting to see, as the weeks go on, a little bit more creativity in the offensive play calling, better execution in the offensive play calling, and the defense is pretty good as well. At 8, it's Washington. They do take a bit of a dip after a loss against the Baltimore Ravens, but they hung with Baltimore, sorry. And so I think they are still deserving of a top 10 spot. At 7, it's Green Bay. This was the most convincing victory and performance that Green Bay has had all season against Arizona, so that is a good sign again for us. We were kind of on the Green Bay bandwagon. They are getting better as the season goes on, and it's kind of similar to last year. Only this year they're not starting at 3-6 and making that push. They're starting right around 500 and making a push. So I think they're going to be dangerous. Walt saying that Mason is practicing. He should be able to play against Kansas City on Sunday. That's fantastic news, especially for those of us who have Mason in fantasy leagues. Where do we go? At 6, it's Buffalo. They move up in the power rankings, getting Amari Cooper and getting a big win over the New York Jets. I think Amari Cooper is exactly what this offense needed, and I think gets them back into kind of Super Bowl contention. Now, as we talked about yesterday, defense still needs to be addressed, but it's looking up with Amari Cooper there. At 5, it is the Houston Texans, 41 points over the New England Patriots. Another strong showing against a defense that we think is supposed to be pretty good, although I think that is also changing a fair amount. At 4, it's Detroit. The Lions, boy, did they feel a certain kind of way about playing the Dallas Cowboys last week. Hey, like that was a loss that really stuck with that team, and they pounded the hell out of them in this game, and just any nightmares they had from a season ago have all gone away based off of that one, because holy crap. And then our top 3 remain the same. At 3, it is the Minnesota Vikings, who it's still Sam Darnold, so we still can't get him in that top 2 yet, but they find their way on the podium. At 2, it is the Baltimore Ravens. Still some long-term concerns about that defense, but that was a good win against Washington. And at number 1, no one has knocked them off the perch yet. They are the Kansas City Chiefs. So those are the NFL power rankings as we head into week number 7. We are not done with lists on this show today. There was a gigantic fight over the weekend, and while there was controversy around the results, we still have another data point for 2 fighters who were in the top 10 in the pound for pound. So where do they land after that big fight in Saudi Arabia? Well, let's talk about it. Boxing pound for pound rankings coming off of Beterbiev versus Bivol at Saudi Arabia. A bit of a shift in this one. And so this is, I kind of had to preface this last week with the UFC because there was a controversial decision in the Raquel Pennington-Juliana Pena fight. Even if you disagree with the scoring, for pound, in my opinion, I think you have to just go with what the results are on paper. If you want to matchmake based off of how you think the fight should have gone, or how the judges should have done it, that's fine. But I think for actual real life rankings, I think you have to kind of follow what the results say. So coming in at number 10, I have Teofimo Lopez. Still a couple of gigantic wins and maybe a couple of stumbles along the way as well. But I still think that the resume is there at number 10. At number 9, it is David Benavidez. The only way he really gets to move up is if he finds his way into better competition. And Lord knows, this is not a knock on him for dodging anyone. It is a knock on people above him. Check Alvarez, Canelo, and not giving him the opportunities to move up or to test his skills in those ways. At number 8, it is Devin Haney. It felt like there was a few times where you go through, what about this guy? Why don't I have, we lost to Haney. Okay, well, what about, we lost to Haney. Well, okay, he's beat enough guys who are supposed to be on this list. Why don't I put him on this list? Still one of the best fighters in the sport. At 7, it's Dmitry Bivol. So he falls down a couple of spots based off of a loss to Artur Beterbiev. He still has the win over Canelo Alvarez, so you have to still keep him on this ranking, even though that is a smaller fighter moving up. But still, a loss to a guy who was basically tied with him in the pound for pound rankings, I don't think should drop him out of the top 10. At 6, it's Gervonta Davis. He does move up just based on the Bivol loss. One of the guys who is in contention for face of the sport, so to speak. At 5, it's Canelo Alvarez. For the first time in a while, I have really bumped Canelo down in the rankings. I just feel like this last fight against Berlanga, I think has to move him down a little bit more. And when you have a guy in Beterbiev, so spoiler alert, he does move up. When you have a guy in Beterbiev who is going out and fighting another guy who's basically tied with him in the pound for pound rankings and unifying a championship, I think that guy has to go over Canelo when Canelo had the opportunity to fight someone on this list and decided to go with Berlanga, who was barely a top 10 fighter in his own weight class. So that is the knock against Canelo. And again, I get no joy in this because I am such a huge Canelo fan, but I think it had to be done. And so obviously at 4, it is Beterbiev. You can say what you want about how the judges should have or could have or would have scored that fight. What they did score it was in favor of Artur Beterbiev. And so now he continues to wake up as the undisputed light heavyweight champion. And a win over a top 10 fighter gets you up into the top 4. At number 3, it's Terrence Crawford. That is going to be a tough one to knock off after the amazing performance he had over Errol Spence Jr. I do think, again, some of the talk of him moving up, even beyond where he tried in August, is a little bit premature, and would like to see him slowly do that, even though we are getting towards the end of the career here. I think that might be a step too far, but for now, dominant performance against Errol Spence Jr. in the biggest fight of the year keeps him at number 3. At 2, it's Alexander Usyk after countless wins at heavyweight, cruiserweight, and all of that, and a win over Tyson Fury. I think you have to keep this guy at number 2. And at number 1, it is Naoya Inoue, one of the most dominant fighters in this sport. And no matter what weight class he goes to, no matter who he is fighting, that power follows him wherever it goes, and he is just an absolute wrecking ball. And if you have not watched this guy fight, because most of his fights are in Japan at 2 in the morning, 2 in the morning our time, not 2 in the morning Japan time. If you can watch this guy fight, please do it. Go find any YouTube clip of this guy, because he is just one of the best fighters of this era, and I still... like, obviously, giving him credit here, number 1 in the pound-for-pound rankings, but I think that this guy does not get the attention and love he deserves because of just how damn good he is as a fighter. So that's the homework for today. Go out, YouTube Naoya Inoue, and watch him just be an absolute wrecking machine at a bunch of the smaller weight classes. So, a bit of a quicker one today. Coming in, by the time we edit this thing down, it's going to be about half an hour. So, thank you guys so much for hanging out. Tomorrow's an off day, and then Friday is going to be a little bit different than what we have done around these parts before. As we've talked about before, I am back on Sportsnet 960 The Fan every Friday, and so I have to be there for noon. We're on location tomorrow, too, but we have to, on location on Friday. And so that only gives me a bit of time in the morning to get these things done. And then also, after, when, like, we can't do the divide of Football Friday and then Fighting Friday, because after, I'm basically going right from there to Flames Community Arena to call some Calgary Dinos hockey coming up on Friday as well. So, it is going to be a bit of a jumbled schedule, and quite frankly, I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but keep it locked. I'll try to get things scheduled here as best as I can on Primetime PK. Also, keep it locked to my social medias. I am at Primetime Klein on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. So, thank you all so much for hanging out with me today, and I will talk to all of you later on today. I forgot to say, we're doing another video game stream. So, that's coming out at, we're going to be doing that at 3 o'clock Mountain Time today. Going to be continuing on with the Calgary Flames. It's hockey season. I do want to get the other ones in there, but for now, it's hockey season. We gotta get this thing wrapped up again. So, we are going to do that. Toxic, see you later. Walt, as always, thank you so much. Big Mako as well, thank you very much in the chat, and I'll talk to all of you either later today or coming up in some form on Friday. Have a great day, everybody.